Everybody that knew about this seed crystal is gone, dead. And whoever knew about it kept it very close to their chests. I had Harvard geologists come up 3 years ago. They had to ask me permission to come up. The guys get out of their truck. They're almost like going, like unbelievable. And then they had to check themselves, right? They had to like, the kids in the candy store right at the moment. But they took samples, and why they took samples? Because in the Harvard basement, they found samples that were taken out in the 50s from here, and now they found this is all foundational to the computer world we know it, right? So this is such a rarity to find specimens like this in such size and crystalline in nature. There's one spot in Russia and one in South America, similar. But other than that, there's nowhere else on the planet where we see this type of cranial mass. This is such a little diverse little basket of mineralogy that's I've had this for 40 years. The old guy, I lived to be 100, Doc Steckley, chiropractor from 1929. He had it for 40 years. So for 80 years, anybody that knows anything about this site is probably gone, left us, right? And I'm the one carrying it still. But here it is. My name is Alan. I have claims in Algonquin Park. I'm an alchemist. In this particular deposit, there's a beautiful seams of alanine, the amino acid alanine, although it's not essential, but you have a party, you gotta have a party, right? You gotta have everybody there for a party, right? A good stone stands the test of time. It gets weathered, but it's still standing. Okay, this little pond here is just a winter runoff melt. And then when it rains, it stores for a while, and then it evaporates as the summer gets hotter. But more life comes out of this pond than most lakes. There's tree frogs, salamanders, green frogs, leopard frogs, turtles come here, and they also lay their eggs in all these different paramagnetic deposits. And a lot of animals will come to the greenstone, and during the winter they dig in, whether there's a fungi little ball in there or something, but it's always interesting that what life comes out of this aggregate. It grew right out of that sand. That was a pile of sand, and that tree set up in there and grew. So now if there isn't something to this, how does the birch tree, which represents Beeth, which is the beginning. In the Nordic calendar, it's the first tree of the season, right? The new year, November. Anyway, also the birch is, a barometer. The Vikings, they cut all the birches down in Iceland. There isn't a birch today there. I think they broke the spirit of the tree, and I'm a firm believer we can bring the spirit back, but we got to create the energy again. So these ancient deposits, again, we're on an old, right here is a sandstone that metamorphosized through time and ice and weight to become a granodiorite. Stonehenge has a lot of granodiorite standing up there, wave guides. So when we start to do small little menhirs again in our cities and out in the country and the farm fields, we start to create a better connection to congruence, which is the toroidal field. And it's a mathematical expression of nature, or the great master, the creator. In Druid we talk about life sciences, like what makes life. So we came to understand through the stone world that the rock is behind everything. It's the brick in your house. It grew the tree for the lumber. It is a source of sugars, flowers, fruits, scents, aromatic oils, and it's all mineral based when you walk it back. But the diversity of mineral will give you the geometric expression of life. So if you've only got a little random plus minus, you don't get a lot. As soon as we get into division, multiplication, all of a sudden the patterns fractal out. And it all ties into the Mandelbrot set. The Mandelbrot set is a mathematical pattern that when you look at the big picture and you walk the math down, at the very end of the equation is the exact same thing, but a mini version. So the macro and the micro, right? And that's the knowledge that I've seemed to have discovered through nature. Not, I went to the textbook to validate what nature showed me. So, and then I went to the university and they said I was a charlatan because I talked about these energetic principles as well as the nutritional chemical constituents of rock, right? But you got to remember, all our fertilizers, you know, other than the petrochemical industry, that gives you the stuff that's not allowed to be put into a dump, and they put it on a farm field. And this is what's contributed to the degradation of the planet. And, you know, we can't be blaming anybody. We all allowed it to happen. It's time to take a stand and reverse it. And that's where remineralization will do. It can change the face of the planet again into fertility. But you got to diversify the rock world too. So that's where my knowledge is. I've discovered all these unique deposits that create harmonics, but also nutritional sources. So we're going to look at over here at these are some wild blackberries here that you have to get out for a second. So these make the big black guys, eh? And they're so tasty. So
and they've got this spiral of the branches, and then within each berry, that's a little mini.
Yeah. But you see the fractaling? How the fruit's set there? When you look down this way? So what it's doing is it's walking up the DNA, the staircase to heaven. So ammonia walks to heaven, and nitrate goes to the core. So nitrate is spinning into the earth, roots, and ammonia, fruits and flowers. So that's the two spins that they show us in the the yin yang symbol, the whole hot, cold, plus minus associations to all this basic principle of the universe. People always say, well, what do you do with this stuff? Like, how do you apply it? And because of our chemical model, everybody's so caught up on, it has to be so uniform. Well, nature likes to dance, like ourselves. We like a little challenge. So people say, like, for these berries here, what I just do a couple times during the year is that. A couple of handfuls. So now the nutrients go in, make a tea, and they go in there, but also we have some aggregation here. So we have these little batteries that light up during storm fronts, equinoxes, full moons, solar flares, little magnetic hiccups that happen all through our calendar year, which the ancients were very aware of again, right? So here we are in a part of the world, Madoc, Ontario. We're up on the old meat of the world, the old cranial plates, the Precambrian shield. People Precambrian, people say, what's that? Well, that's before England, Ireland, and Scotland and Wales came out of the ocean. So literally, these are the grandparent stone to the planet. And at one time, like, this is the original mantle. So in it, it has foundational beginnings. If you wear the rock down, which time has done through glaciation and flooding and bacteria and plants and so the mountains. It's interesting. The mountains are actually walking to the sea, only to become the next volcano, to become the next mountain. But that takes eons of time. We're here for such a short period on the life cycle of things. I'm a firm believer Canada can reset the world. Reset the world. We need to put this stuff into the oceans to bring the fish populations. Because when I put this in the water, I notice the fish come. Before there's no fish. All of a sudden we get the little minnow. To have the minnow, if you don't have the minnow, you don't have the big guys. Because everybody has to have lunch. So anyway, this is foundational to help our oceans again, to help the the creatures of the ocean be more healthy, have healthier babies. I've been feeding this. I'll dust bird food up during the winter. I use a lot of zeolites, diatoms, plus these different deposits. Just coat the seed. So now when the bird eats the seed, he gets a bioflora happening in the intestinal tract. So now we get birds with immunity to things that they get. Flus. Birds get flus too, right? So it all depends how fresh the environment is. So what magnetism contributes is to a freshening of the environment. A lot of soils have no magnetic potential. It needs to be reintroduced. They're not an area of volcanism. Volcanism brings you magnetism. The elements all get excited in the cooking process and make a magnetotron, or a biological magnetic bacteria that are actually walking every day to the ocean. The sun comes up, the magnetic material follows the cascading of the sun. So literally every day, pretty soon, through millions of years, I've traveled a great distance. And the rock has these guys frozen in there, and when we look at the rock, we can tell how old it is by that magnetic declination of those guys all marching to the sea. It was either a humongous meteor, or it was a part of a planet that lived before. There's a Dutch gal, there's a meteorologist, I don't know her name, but she's world renowned. See, most meteorites only have 3% carbon. Because to have 33% carbon in there naturally, to have that much carbon, again, it's usually an indication of something that lived. So maybe a planet that died and wandered and wandered and wandered, and prior to it flying into the Earth was nothing but a solution. There was no bacteria yet. As soon as that deposit hit, some of the first bacteria showed up on the planet. The archaebacteria, which are an invisible bacteria, but their skeletons became sediment, and their bodies accumulated and accumulated through time, and eventually the ocean the ground arched out of the water, and then the land began. And the first creatures on the planet were lichens, and they secrete organic acids, and that created the first soil, and then the soil became the matrix.
So it's lichen before fungi?
Well, that's the whole thing. There's a big toss-up. Who's first, or maybe they both were here at the same time, just again two expressions of themselves, you know. Is it a light or a wave? Right? Like, I mean, or are they both just like ourselves? We have a right and a left brain. And then there's two sides to all things. If we drop our ego, right? So here is, we're gonna go by the O'Hara Mills like it's a conservation park, but it's all the buildings are done just like in the 1800s. They replicated everything, nothing modernized other than one building I think has power in it. But other than that, it's set up just like it was, in the 1800s. This area was famous for talc, marble, which is you can get 3 types of talc: a calcium talc, a sodium talc, and a potassium talc. That's basically the makeup of the planet. Literally the makeup, the dusting powder, right? It's a format for things to start. And then you get over here there's an ancient sea that's argillaceous, which means it's really, 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 really fine particles of clay. So fine when it gets compressed, it looks like pages in a book. And they call that a phyllosilicate, right? Like phyto pastry. Many, 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 many thin layers. Anyway, we're gonna look at some black raspberries here, that small guy, and I just throw the minerals. But look at the fruit setting here. And these guys are just filling up now. They'll, in another 3 weeks, there'll be and you can literally, if you go soft like that, they all come right on into your hand. And then here is Kevin. He's a tame bull. Hey Kevin, what's going on, man? Taking care of the little guy? So he's a bull, he's a people-friendly bull. Like you can pet him and stuff, right? And these are the bulls that are like,
Hi, Kevin. He's busy eating. Look at those blackberries. Some of them are getting pink. A little bit's getting pink already. But they go black, huh?
yeah, they'll go black. Yeah, they're red at first and they go black. But they're just starting to fill up now. And again, I just throw little handfuls underneath there at different times of year. And you get the benefit. And you get exceptional flavors. Like where food is no longer organic, it's orgasmic. You have a spiritual experience from the flavonoids.
From remineralized.
From remineralized, yeah. Because people don't make the connection sometimes about amino acids are crystalline substances. People are probably wondering.
Amino acids are crystalline?
Crystalline substances, yeah. You got you have to have mineral substrates for coenzyme reactions. Just think of the mineral realm as the template. And if you do right combinations, you can create all kinds of things. So this is the volcano, and right now we're on a pudding stone, and then over in the back part of the property is an original seed from the beginning of time. People say, well, how do you know it was a seed? You will only find thorium in ocean water, never in fresh water.
Thorium.
Thorium, yeah. Iodine. The iodine. Thor's hammer. So we're in an ultramafic zone here too. This is old volcano land, so way, way, way back. So I'm going to go to the wood mill right now where I get the shavings from and the chips. Because there's an old pear tree that's growing right on the limestone. So right here we're on an old limestone plate. So I'm just gonna, this is a really, really old pear tree that produces some really exceptional pears for taste. And again, it's the geological terrain that's contributing to that. And I've just been, you know, for years I've been, everywhere I go I feed trees. You know, like it's like extended family members for me. So I'm just gonna. So this is a mix of, this is my deluxe mix. Call it Rama rock, Rama. In the Vedas, but also the Rama reserve. You know, Rama is the deity that rules the earth. In the Celtic tradition, Tara, you know, the green lady in China, the green Tara, right? So that's what we're doing is,
What's in the Ramarok?
ooh, we got 5 types of calcium. We've got calcium from Florida in there, calcium from 3 spots here in Ontario. We got calcium from Tennessee because they're the hard rock phosphate in Tennessee. And the soft rock out of Florida. The soft rock comes from when they make chemical fertilizers, when they wash the shells to extract the chemical. There's always a little bit left over. So an old doctor in the 50s, he got an arrangement where I'll take it all, and then he adds a colloidal clay on top. But this one smells like vanilla when the powder. You smell the powder, you can smell vanilla and which is a growth hormone. Eh? Anyway, so let's go for gonna give a little something to the tree.
How is it? This is a pretty old tree, huh?
Okay, here's the pear here. This is another tree in with it.
Ah. Oh yeah, look at it. Some pears.
Yep. He had a really good, a lot of the fruit trees, it's every second year you get a really high yield. But that has a lot to do with how dry the soil gets during the summer. To see if it's in the soil, I think it's the biodynamic guys. Or maybe it's Steiner. They do, you make a tea of the soil and you do a drop on the bladder paper and it'll show you the mycelium pattern of the area. And they know when you have this certain pattern, which is in the reishi, you have fertility. So we can alter landscapes by reintroducing these mushroom species, but we have to feed them. We have to create the environment for the mushroom to bloom. Calcium's a king that way. A calcium ion will make two. The cell will split and split and split more and more. So from the one came the two to the many splendored things. But you need the calcium available ion there to do that. So sometimes people have calcium but it's not available in the soil because we don't have the acidity. And I'm not talking total acidity, it's having some acidic profile. So that's where the volcanic rock comes in and gives you some basic substances again that start the DNA. So that's where the volcanic rock comes in and gives you some basic substances again that start the DNA. ATP, adeno, andesine, a non-essential amino acid, but essential. Good question.
You know where they bury a horn full of manure
Oh,
over?
yeah, the biodynamic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they put the silica. They put the silica in to make a silicate.
Yeah. And they bury it on a full moon?
Yeah, and let it sit for a year or
Yeah.
more, and then so it goes through all that cosmic. The planet's spinning, but the universe is spinning, we're spinning, and it ages it like a cheese, you know, like a. It's a fermentation process.
Yeah, I don't know why it has to be in a horn.
Cosmic horn, man. It's one of the cosmic shapes, the whirl, the vortex.
That's a good reason.
Like, you know, you see it in the antelope, you know, you see it in, you know, certain animals have the horn that goes out, like the mountain goat and stuff, it goes out. It's an antenna. Yeah, what's that? Yeah.
Fractal antenna.
Yeah. Yeah, you get dendrites, where it looks like lightning. Fractally, mathematical branching. But you gotta have the right conductivity to do that, right? You gotta have the right elements to be able to create the current to manifest the expression. 80% of the nutrition is coming through the stomata. It's taking it from the atmosphere. But you gotta have the antennas on the stomata to pick up the frequencies of the nutrition.
That's why they had the that pitch that they play. Sonic boom.
Sonic boom, yeah, they played the harmonics.
Yeah.
But again, that's all water soluble stuff. I'm in the terrain, a backdrop. We're setting the template, and you overlay on it. You've got the foundational template there. you're feeding the plant, but not the soil.
Yeah.
I'm big about feed the soil, and the plant will do the extraction.
Feed your soil and the plant will do. That's like a funkadelic. Feed the soil and your plant will follow.
And that's what I saw. I threw the mineral down and vegetation shows up. I didn't plant anything. So think of it like the mineral realm is apps. You get all these apps now on your phone, you know, and they do all these things for you. Just think of the mineral realm was like that too. It's just because of electron microscopes, we can actually look at the architectural terrain and make a knowledge base from that. Because that's what all our circuitry is all about, right? And you got to remember, circuitry is all made from rock. You see the finished product. So when you walk it back, at the end of the day, it always goes back to the rock. So that's why we do the rock. It's very stimulating. So yeah, Bancroft, Ontario is considered to be the mineral capital of Canada because you'll find everybody here, but zones of everybody. Not a little hairline thing, deposits. So geologists come from all over the world to study about the different aspects of geology from these mineral specimens are all along the highway here and in different parts of where mineral exploration has gone on through the centuries. But we didn't have the nickel. Sudbury got all the clay because they found nickel. Nickel became a big commodity, right? And we're not finding zones so much of silver or copper in this area.
Right.
Because we have a lot of pegmatites, which are huge feldspar crystals. Everything we know is we make all these different products from the rock when it's ground down. That's all patented or protective processing. It's the crystal matrices that are the support mechanism behind it. It's like the set on the movie. What movie are you running? Fertility or scarcity? It always has a lot to do with your soil again. Humongous. Because healthy soil creates healthy bodies. Disease is not in the picture. All you get is vitality. And that vitality breeds happiness, contentment.
Because to have 33% carbon in your
So we saw family trees. Now we see the modern city people are having a hard time replicating because of the soil quality is altered to the earth. Use them. It's nothing but a chemical and bacteria again. Just no restructuring. That's where the mineral realm can help. It has some humongous calcium deposits. Visible. We pretty well provide a visible bacteria. Majority of the limestone made for cement to the world.
and their bodies accumulated in
big
accumulated
combination
through
of
time. And eventually the ocean arched up in this,
got Canada
arched
cement.
out of the water.
We got some big
And
players.
the land began.
They take our limestone and they add it
First
into
creatures
their
on the planet were
make
lichens.
better quality. So
And they secrete
that organic
gases,
geometric
and that created
architecture of
the soil.
crystals in the matrix of the soil.
So it's lichen before fungi?
Good stone stands the test of time.
Big toss-up. First, maybe they both
It gets weathered, but it still stands.
two expressions. Two
There's
expressions
a mountain
of
color,
themselves.
right? Is that a light or a wave? Right?
Or are they both just
And the righteous,
themselves?
you know, the mountains of Quebec.
these two sides to the whole
It's an underwater mountain range. That mountain grew under the sea, under the water, and then the water moved and left the range. But it's interesting, it's also a source The Laurentians has volcanic acid in it, which you find in the broconads. So it's bactericidal, right? I think it's power.
So you're protected under the Aggregate Resources Act.
Well, yeah, I'm in the mineral right I'm in the mineral right claim holder, so that gives me an advantage to do exploration with somebody. This is like we're in the wild up here, right? So you get the locals, they think that, because I'm local, like I can just make my own gate here and take the lock I had off and put their own lock. But so we're gonna have to walk up the hill. Make microscopic lenses from this when they do nano. Has photo optic qualities that enhances the view. Got the black caps here, man. Many times you come up here in August, man, you gotta fight the bears, not for the berries.
Ooh, there's berries.
Micah, that is land nori. Really. We used to make sunglasses from it and lampshades, and be able to look at the eclipse without getting. Land nori, man, look at this. Micah's this point on the teeter-totter. This is the pivot point. It's the regulator of ammonia.
Mica regulates ammonia.
Yep. So diorites are quartz, mica, and that's it. So you see that white, the white and the black. This is such a rarity to find specimens like this in such size and crystalline in nature. There's one spot in Russia and one in South America, similar. But other than that, there's nowhere else on the planet where we see this type of cranial mass of intelligence or light has a venture, right? I mean, it's always we're always kicking at the darkness till it bleeds daylight, right? But it's the light. When you lighten up, diversity can be there because light shows you where the shadow is every time. But anyway, just come on down here because like through the ages they've gone through here at different periods. They pulled one crystal out of here during World War II that pretty well made all the ammunitions for Canada in that effort, that war effort.
From one crystal, it must have been
Because
massive.
it's pyroelectric potassium.
Pyroelectric's different than piezo.
Pyro is fireworks.
Oh, so that makes...
Yeah. So remember, all the fireworks is rock, just showing its esters, asters, boom, bah, bang. So back in there is where the quartz is, but it's under water. We can go to we didn't go down that side of the road. I wanted to just bring you up here first. But you see this biotite, or the mica.
It's amazing.
So mica cleans water, eh? So you can take this and you put it in your water. I just put chunks like this right in your water dispenser. And the flakes come out into the water ion. And sometimes you can actually see it, but what it's doing is it's regulating the ammonia so it never builds up on that knuckle on your big toe.
Yeah.
Or here. Like over in Georgian Bay, there's a lot of granites there that are diorites, which is quartz and mica only, but locked in. That's where you get clarity. When you get into the alkaloids, you get milky. You're making milkshakes now, not just a clear drink, right? But yeah. But yeah, all through here, like just there's all these different zoning. Man, years ago I did a magnetometer thing on over there about 600 feet. There's a huge magnetic bump in there. So the chances are it's a knuckle of magnetite or something, right? Like an actual geometric knuckle. Not just some ions there, but actually a physical third dimensional say, hey, I'm here, man. And the guy that wrote the property up said there's every indication to find museum specimen tourmalines here, emeralds. Like stuff that they would pay, $5 million to stick in the lobby. That because of that uniform crystal that they're in here. The problem with all these guys, all before, pow, pow. Instead of let's saw it, let's see it, let's see, can we just pull that one guy out of there? So they shatter everything, and then that hurts the integrity of the stone sometimes too, right? But yeah, this is microscopic lenses, gun, our ammunitions, buffering. And then, like I say, the quartz that's here is seed crystal, so it's like even there, like all the mica books in there, that little conglomerate there. Like this is rare to see this. It's very rare to see this geologically. Like this. Like in something like little like, hey, I'm here. Oh yeah, all the little pixels there. Hey, oh wait here.
This is wow, and there's another one here. This is another. Whoa, it's so heavy.
So this is your parent granite on top, and all this is hidden underneath the shell of that.
These are amazing. It looks like scales, and it's layers thick.
So there we got a little different geology there. We tried this a few times years ago, dynamiting just to see, is there anything, is the quartz right here, but the quartz is all under the water there and goes into the hill this way, but underneath, and it comes up on the other side, it's another crystal, it's like that. And when we go this way for half a mile, there's an 800-foot shear where the ice cut right through the rock, through the potassium to make the channel. And all the quartz is on this side.
So is this a riverbed here?
No. This was all like that at one time. They just gone in and
Oh wow.
blasting and digging and scratching and. But all this can be recycled, eh? This is all like usable. There's no waste here ever. That's one thing about, as much as I might be mining, we create more energy than what it took to get it to you. So that's how nature works. Remember we were talking about remainders? That's part of the equation. There's a nice little shake there, eh? So I consider this to be land nori. It's just like nori seaweed, but it's a land molecule. It's a land plant rather than an ocean plant.
And it's got silica? What's it got inside?
It's a hydrous aluminum silicate. So it's dielectric, like it's capacity, like current doesn't go through it. So they used to make the old connections for electricity with stuff like this. Because it doesn't conduct, but it insulates. So now we're seeing, where you got this in between the potassium and the quartz. You're getting a little bit of yin and yang going on. and the mic is I'm eating in the middle.
And it's like buried inside the rock. It's amazing.
It's locked in because the temperatures and all the conditions are just right to say, snapshots. And there's a couple spots on I have 600 acres here staked out, right? So I have never walked the whole of the property, but how I got to find out where the stuff was is the animals always showed me. The chickadees would come and they'd all fly around me. And they'd fly away and they'd go, come on. And so finally I started listening to them and then they'd show me where outcrops. And then I noticed that the moose in the winter stand right on this crystal outcrop and just get zoned, man. Just get like tuned into that primordial, celestial carpet ride. So anyway, but yeah, just, and the Americans took out 600 tons just out in World War II. And everybody that knew about this seed crystal is gone, dead. And whoever knew about it kept it very close to their chest. I had Harvard geologists come up 3 years ago. They had to ask me permission to come up. The guys get out of their truck. They're almost like going, like unbelievable. And then they had to check themselves, right? They had to like, the kids in the candy store right at the moment. But they took samples, and why they took samples? Because in the Harvard basement, they found samples that were taken out in the 50s from here. And now they found, this is all foundational to the computer world we know it, right? So, anyway.
Well,
And I put this one, I put combinations of this in my, of course, my flowers for the earth, but also flowers for your wall. We put it in paint, and we start to, we nanotech these harmonics onto the wall. Your skin now, your room is a skin. It's been potentialized that, with the painting, with these minerals in it. So we can create these little echo bunkers, little cocoons, where we can, a little reprieve from the world we know it, because it's going to get a little faster before it gets any slower, just because we're on that race for space, right? Rather than let's clean up our own zone first, man. Let's use all this technology we got in outer space for here, and then let's go look for somewhere else.
but let's
Because-
fix here first.
Bucky said the Earthship was a spaceship with a broken rudder. We used to travel. So this is, like I say, a very unique spot. Just the future is coming, man. That's all I can say is the future is coming to us, because we got the screen to start it all, replication. So we're not manipulating, we're replicating.
And you're not really mining, you're more like sifting, kind of.
Well, there's, yeah, well, sometimes you got to crack the nut of the shell to get to the meat inside. So
Sure.
that's what the Earth's hiding jewels for us to discover. We just have to be eco-conscious on what we're done after visiting. Through the years, they were going in here and they wanted the clear only. So they were using the clear for the glass guys. Owens.
Corning.
Corning, yeah. They took a hell of a lot of stuff from here way back to grow all those fancy ceramic dishes that they make, right? But they only need to add a few grains of this in with the other stuff to make that super ceramic.
Right? Seed. Like you were
Right?
saying.
Yes,
Seed.
seed is right. It's like, you want to buy a good farm animal, let's see the parents. Anytime you're buying a dog or cat, it's always best to look at the parent. You got some indication of possibly what you got, temperament-wise, but also just vitality, right? And I know I'm a survivor. It's written in my hand, man. I've walked this planet quite a few times, from a caveman on. Now I'm conscious. I'm not a barbarian anymore, right? I learned how to do it rather than hurt it to get it. But I love to cut out slabs, make bathtubs, healing tubs. That you have in a city courtyard where anybody can go bask in the pool. You're not limited by your status quo. Like the old day, the water is the sacred water, right? So we see in here another little hodgy-podgy, because they were looking for something specific. So they just kept cracking and scratching through.
And they just left everything just.
Well, at the time there was no, we didn't have the electronics industry. We didn't have, awareness. We didn't have microscopes that could actually say, how can we use this molecularly? Man, there's some big black caps here. Like I say, they got the ones like this big when they come. Black cap raspberries. But the big guy, like they have the fruit like that big. But it's all flowering right now, but in another month they're there, if you're here.
Oh wow!
They won't come to you, you have to come to them.
He's come back in a month, Andy. He come back with a basket.
So this is where you can see like, potassium. Talk about potassium's essential for growth, hair, and it's soap. People don't realize all your hair soaps are all potassium rock. It's separated. They've pulled the soap off of it.
So NPK is needed. It's just the way that they do it is not.
Well, we're using spent petroleum products.
Yeah.
Which have no inherent memory of being of remembering of being something that lived, like a remnant of something that lived, something that's whipped up in a man-made expression. So in this hole right now, there's 1 million gallons of water. It takes 3 days to get it empty to be able to walk in there again. So this is literally a crystal pond, literally. And the water is very healing, but come back another time. We got a great berry here this year, man. Ooh, baby.
These are all gonna be berries.
And they're all starting to
Wow.
go up right now. But yeah, I have a few times coming up here because it's like a berry laneway. You can see where the bear's laid on his back and just just peels them off.
Yeah.
And on this property too, some humongous old pines way back in woods. Like, guys that were never touched by the loggers. They're like grandpas. There's one that,
Like
even this guy here, he's like 150 for sure. This guy right here.